Hey, y'all. So today I wanted to talk about what you can do when you don't know what to do, because this liminal or waiting period can feel like torture. And I've talked about when you're healing your burnout, you go through these phases. And one of the phases is like a cocoon phase, where it's all about doing inner work, which is so not sexy. It's the thought work. It's what is my role in this? What am I making it mean? What are my options? Like it's all inner work. You're not actually going out and looking for a new job or asking for a raise or really doing anything that anybody else can see or that you could necessarily mark off a to-do list. And for those of us high achievers, perfectionists, doers, this can feel really bad. So, what can you do when you don't know what to do, when you're in that phase? So, I call this minding your P's in Q's because it has the letter P, the letter N, and the letter Q. And I'll tell you what this means. Well, I'll go ahead and tell you. Spoiler alert. Okay, it means pause, notice, and question, which sounds like womp womp. That's not fun. But hang in there. I got to explain this. All right, mom jeans. Who wears mom jeans? If you are over the age of, I'd say 40, maybe even like 42, 43, you remember when mom jeans were in style back in I guess it would have been late 80s, early 90s. And at the time, I was young. I was probably older elementary school or middle school. And I thought they were the coolest things. They were acid washed, high waisted, they make your butt look gigantic because the pockets are like huge and come halfway down your thigh. And then nerd glasses. If you're old enough, you remember Sally Jesse Raphael. She had like red, huge nerd glasses. And I remember watching her on TV. She was kind of like the blonde Oprah. And I did not think it was at all unusual that she had these humongous glasses. My sister-in-law says I've seen pictures of her. She had huge red glasses. At the time, they were cool. Within 5 years, maybe seven, we would all be laughing at mom jeans and nerd glasses. And now people are wearing them again. But it's amazing how you can be on one side of the door and then you totally shift and you're like, no, I'll never wear those again. They're awful. And then you shift again and you're like, oh my gosh, they are pretty cool. And like they're selling mom jeans at all these teenage stores like American Eagle. And my daughter wants to wear mom jeans. So this is background for how we're going to work on you shifting. Okay. You've probably heard people say you're the average of the five people you spend the most time with. And you can probably see where this is true. If all your best friends drink and go to happy hour and party, then you are probably going to be similar. You're going to feel tempted to drink, whether you really want to or not, or at least that's how I am. If your spouse exercises or your partner, you are going to be more motivated to work out. But you can't always control who you spend time with, right? Like you may not want to be like your coworkers. They're not people you want to emulate necessarily, but you're also not willing to quit your job. Or if your kids are teenagers and tweens like mine are, there can be total you know what's. And I find myself emulating them. I'm like nanny boo booing back at them when they say something. And I'm like, what am I doing? I don't want to be just like them, I want to be their mom, but I also can't stop hanging around them because they're my kids. So you can't always change who you hang out with. Sometimes you can. So we've talked about that in one of the decluttering episodes. But today we're going to talk about something you can change. So this is something you can do while you're not sure what else to do. And it will have a huge impact on your career, your burnout, your personal life. It's going to have a big impact on everything. So take a deep breath. I want you to take a wide lens view of your life. You know how sometimes maybe if you're on a trip or you're maybe even like at a funeral or something, and you kind of have this wide lens view of your life. So just for a second, sort of picture yourself floating in the air, looking down at your life, and ask yourself, how is it going? How's my life going? Like, maybe we'll use the metaphor of a garden. So if you were a gardener and your life was a garden and you were walking around assessing how the different crops are growing, if you had like a row and this row was your spiritual life, how are those plants growing? Are weeds overtaking it? And this is whatever you mean, whatever your spiritual life means to you. It's not necessarily like I go to church or, I count the rosary beads. It's whatever your spiritual life means to you. What about your relationship row? If your life is a garden and an entire row represents your relationships, how do you think that row is doing? Are the plants withered? Are they thriving? And then what about career? What you do all day? How's that row doing? And then lastly, your health. And you're not going to do anything about this in this episode or in this tool. We are just assessing. So you're just doing like a plus or minus. You don't even have to rank it on a scale from 1 to 10 or whatever. You just plus if it's going well, minus if it's not. Okay, so once you've done that, and most of you have probably done it in your head because we all listen to podcasts when we're on the move. Imagine that you are walking to your garden shed and you've got all these shelves, and each shelf has a different chemical or a different product. There are fertilizers and weed killers and insecticides. So, which one do you pick up over and over throughout the week? Maybe it's Roundup. People still use, I don't know if it's called Roundup, but people still use that because we see a lot of rashes. And, I'll ask, have you had any contact with chemicals? And they'll mention stuff like that. And I'm like, what? Am I eating the vegetables that you put that on? Um, or maybe you're picking up like a fertilizer and it's something beneficial for all your different rows. It nourishes your crops. So, this is like your thoughts. So, your thoughts are circulating in your head all day. It's like the voice in your head is chattering constantly. And we're not aware of it 99% of the time. We have no idea what this voice is saying to us. And so that's where the N comes in, the notice. And before you notice, you have to actually pause, even if it's just like a second, and just say, what am I thinking? Martha Beck calls these lizard tunes, like on a jukebox. She says, we only have like 10 or 12 songs that play over and over on our jukebox. And she calls them lizard because it's the lizard part of our brain. A lot of these were formed in childhood and they were formed to keep you safe. So if your thought is like, I am stupid, I'm stupid, I'm stupid, I'm stupid, maybe you say it to yourself all day, you repeat it over and over. There's a reason this voice is there. There's a reason for this repetitive thought. It's trying to keep us alive. You may be thinking, well, how is thinking I'm stupid keeping me alive? But think about it. If you tell yourself you're stupid, you're stupid, you're stupid, you're probably not going to be a risk taker. You're going to sort of play it small. You're going to, yeah, play it safe. And safety back in the prehistoric times meant that you were going to stay alive longer. So with clients, I take notes while I'm talking to them. And a lot of times I will notice recurrent thoughts. And that's exactly how I word it. I just say, hey, I notice, or can I point out something that I notice? Or say more about that. Like if they do say, I'm an idiot, or God, I'm just worthless. I'll say more about that. And a lot of times we will dig deep into where that thought originated, if they even know. So the key is you need to pause and you need to notice. I was thinking about my career over the last 21, 22 years as a PA. And at various points, my thoughts were repetitive and they were around my job. So I'm trapped. That's something that I used to think a fair amount. In fact, for 8 years, I had that recurrent thought, I'm trapped. I can't do anything. I'm stuck here. When I first graduated, I really did have the thought, like, I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot. I'm going to kill somebody, or I don't know anything. And that was what I repeated all day. Um, Another job I had was where the doctor really was, he was a lot. And I would think, he is crazy. He is crazy. He is crazy. So we're going to talk about when your recurrent thoughts are about another person. But the key points are you have to catch yourself thinking it, number one. And this will have you, I think it best happens when you are sort of in a waiting period, like you're in your car driving, or you're in a waiting room, like I was for 2 hours today. You're in bed at night, you can't sleep, because that's when those intrusive thoughts are going to appear. Okay, if your recurrent thoughts are about somebody else, and we've all had these, like, he's crazy, she is so selfish, he is addicted to that, she is a tyrant. Any thought that happens over and over about another person, this is not in your power to control that person. It's good information because it means that you have given away some of your power to this person or this situation, right? So if your thought is, he's a blah, 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 like you can't make him not be a blah, blah, blah. So if my thought about this doctor, he's a monster. All right, here's how you get around this. If this is your recurrent thought, I want you to ask yourself, what am I making it mean about me? The fact or the thought that he's a monster, what am I making it mean about me? Well, if I'm honest, I think I was probably thinking I'm a weakling, like I'm a victim. I can't do anything about this. I am powerless. So you want to try to turn it around and figure out what you're making it mean about you. So let's say what if your thought is about a family member and your thought is she is so selfish, or a should thought, she should be a better friend. She should get her act together. Should is another clue that it's out of your control. You are arguing with reality. Reality is what is. So if you are arguing with reality, you can't change it. You cannot change her. The only thing you can change is your thoughts about her. You could tell her how you feel, but it's not doing you any good to have those thoughts over and over. Another thing you can do if your recurrent thoughts are about another person, you can say, okay, if I had a mirror and I turned it on myself, what is it about her actions or about her being so selfish that bothers me so much? Do I have any part of that in me? And that's really hard. That is so hard. And so if my thought was, she's so selfish, she should get her act together, she should be a better friend, like maybe I should be a better friend. Maybe I should be a better friend to me. Maybe I'm kind of mistreating myself, but I'm blaming her because it's so much easier to blame somebody else. Um, so this waste valuable energy. We all know we're here for just a very short period of time. So it's important to notice when you're arguing with reality. If you use the word should, it means you're trying to play God, and it means you're trying to control what someone or something else does that is out of your control. We cannot alter our present day reality. For years, my intrusive thought was about my husband snoring. And it would happen throughout the night, like 4 or 5 times I would have this thought. And then in the morning, I would have this thought. And before I went to bed, I would have this thought. The time before you go to sleep at night and the time when you wake up first thing in the morning, these are so valuable. This can literally change your life. If you can get a handle on that brief period of time right before you go to bed and when you wake up, it will change your energy, your vibrations, how you interact with the world around you, everything. But I digress. So here's what I would think. I would think he is so selfish. He should do something about it. He should get a CPAP. He should at least apologize to me for interrupting my sleep. He should, and then I would try to fix him. He should lose weight. He should go see an ear, nose, and throat doctor and get his nose checked out. But this is reality. I was awake. It was a fact. And if I spend energy wishing it weren't so, it's pointless. And so if I ask myself, okay, well, what am I making it mean? Like what is my role in it? And I would probably have said, he's wrong and I'm right. So then you can dive deeper. You can switch places with the person. You can't just turn it around. Like I couldn't just try to trick my brain and say, um, instead of he's inconsiderate, he is considerate, or instead of he should get a CPAP, I can't just turn it around and say he shouldn't get a CPAP because I won't believe it. Instead, you have to sort of put yourself in their shoes. When we did mock trial in high school, we had these exercises where we would represent one side of the court case. This person is guilty because they shot so and so. And then we would switch like a debate team and we would get on the other side and we would have to say, no, he's innocent, da 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 da. So, who was it? There was a child psychologist that told me kids who are on the spectrum have a hard time seeing what other people are feeling. They really can't put themselves in other people's shoes easily. So she kept a pair of huge shoes and she would have them put their feet in that pair of shoes to pretend like they were that other person. And that physical act of doing that seemed to help. So see if you could switch places. Like, how would that change it? What would you think? If I were my husband and I would feel really bad about waking my wife up 4 or 5 times a night and not even knowing that I did it, but feeling like a bad guy. If I were him, I would probably have a recurrent thought of, um, it's my fault. It's my fault. So see if you can put yourself in the other person's shoes. It's easier when it's a spouse. It's much harder when it's like that crazy doctor. Well, it turns out he was going through a divorce at the time, and his soon to be ex-wife actually worked in the clinic. So when I'm able to sort of step into his shoes and look at it from that perspective, I'm at least able to maybe feel neutral about it. And it's been years. So I don't know if I could have done that, while I was still working there. So the next question I want you to ask yourself is, what is it costing me to think this all day? To have this thought in my head all day? What is it doing to my body? What is it doing to my mental state? And if you're like, I don't know what it's doing, just ask yourself this question. Do I feel light and free, or do I feel constricted, trapped, and tight when I think that thought? And all of the thoughts I've mentioned so far feel constricted, tight, and trapped. So is it worth it? Is it worth it for you to have that thought circulating in your head all day? Because guess what? Those thoughts, those jukebox tunes or lizard tunes or whatever you want to think about it, or if you go with the garden metaphor, whatever you're spraying on your garden, it is going to impact what comes out of it, right? It really will. So, okay, think about one of your top 3 thoughts. Is it worth it? And I have had clients, when I ask them this, say, well, yeah, because if I didn't think that, maybe I wouldn't be willing to make a change. But what if you don't make a change? What if you live with this thought? What if years from now, like picture yourself with gray hair, much older, What if you are still thinking this thought, like hundreds of times a day? Imagine if you listen to the same song on repeat all day. You're going to have a hard time getting those lyrics out of your head. You are going to, it'll determine your actions. One of my clients, I've mentioned her before, and I've asked her permission to just repeat her song that plays in her head all day. Should have known better. I should have known better. So, what do you think happens after 10 years of this thought being in her head? I should have known better. Well, first of all, she's arguing with reality because she clearly didn't know better. The things that she's bringing to mind are all things that happened in the past. So she's arguing with reality because it's already happened. She can't change it. And then the second thing she's doing is collecting evidence to support her belief. And we don't even think that we're doing this, but we do. So if you come up with your 5 most common thoughts, just at the end of the day, notice the evidence that supports that. And I've told y'all I did this with my husband because when I first started life coaching and like cut way back on my job and I was writing, um, my thought was he doesn't support me. He's not a cheerleader. He doesn't support me. And I would look for evidence. Oh, he didn't ask me about my day. He sighed when I told him, I wanted to take another course. Or he didn't seem excited when I told him about a client that I just got. And so after months of this, and it was starting to really weigh on our relationship, I got the idea to take my own advice and I started looking for evidence that he did support me. And I had to consciously do this. So every day in my journal, I would write out evidence that he did support me. He didn't complain about money because I was making less money. He didn't say anything when I told him I joined a writers group. He didn't complain about that, even though it costs money. So look for evidence to support the contrary. Number 3, my client, I would ask the one who has the thought, I should have known better. I would ask her, what are you making it mean about you? And after working together for a while, she came up with, I have this underlying fear that I'm not smart. I'm just not smart. What's it doing to her body? I mean, it was like neck tension and a pit in her stomach. And these are not free and light feelings. These are bad feelings. What about her mind? Anxiety. Anxiety because she's always thinking that she should have known better. Even in the present moment when she's making decisions, she's thinking, even if it's subconsciously, I'm going to think that I was not smart enough to make a good choice. How do her thoughts impact how she sees the future? How do your thoughts or her thoughts impact how you see the future? So, if my thought with my husband was he doesn't support me, when I think about the future, do you think I was excited about another 20 years together if I really truly believed he doesn't support me? So just kind of ask yourself that, like, how is this thought painting a picture of my future? Um, with my client, she just had no faith in herself. When she looked at the future, she saw herself continuing to make mistakes or bad decisions. And what is it costing you? So it's costing me my relationship. Um, with the doctor that I thought was crazy, it cost me time. I mean, I could have left. I could have talked. I never even had a conversation about like, "Hey, I don't appreciate how you're treating me," or, when you snatched that chart and threw it across the room, or when you yelled at us, or, I just never had a conversation, which is crazy to me now to think about this. With my client, what is it costing her? It's costing her peace and confidence and her ability to be happy. So, after I go through these exercises with clients, and it takes a little while, it takes your willingness to pause and notice and question, PNQ. But they're usually floored that these thoughts are driving them. They're like in the driver's seat of their lives because we don't even consciously realize that these thoughts are dictating how we spend our lives, the decisions we make, the relationships we have or don't have. And you can look back over your life and you can see how these thoughts disempower you. So my goal is not to get you to change these thoughts yet. It may take years. And a part of you may always believe this. And I tell my clients when they're like, I just can't stop thinking this. Hey, this has been with you since childhood. It's your body's way of trying to keep you safe, keep you alive. So you can notice it, but you may not be able to easily change it. I just want you to observe and question these thoughts. What is this thought doing to me? And then you can play the what if game. You can say, how might my life look different if I didn't have this thought? You don't have to get rid of it. You just say, how might my life look different if I didn't have this thought? And noticing is the first step. That's why food journals actually work, or the apps where you keep track of your food, or you keep track of like your steps. Noticing is what really works because we're just oblivious. We just go through life on autopilot. So by noticing, you are slowing down time and it's empowering because you're going to have the choice about whether to let that thought determine how you live your life. So I would love to hear from y'all. Reach out and let me know at least one or two of your top thoughts. So I was honest with y'all, so I want you to do the same. All right, and I will catch y'all next week.